The Things We All Carry is a podcast about first responders and their stories surrounding trauma on the job. The intention of this podcast is to raise awareness and share meaningful conversation around a subject often viewed as taboo or simply ignored. Be aware this content may be graphic and it is real. It may not be suitable for children or adults triggered by this subject matter. Welcome back to The Things We All Carry. It's been a long weekend here. It's been kind of rainy and dreary and blah all weekend, and it has really it played with my head a little bit and got me down. I'm coming out of it, thankfully, and looking forward to some sunshine and getting back to more of a summer type pattern and getting outside in the like I said, in that sunshine and enjoying it and soaking it in a little bit. So that's nice. The sun came out this afternoon, and I'm hoping it stays out for a bit. You know, I was talking to a couple of people, and a couple of them specifically. One was TJ from Keep the Promise, and I reached out to these people and I said, "Yo, man, I feel like I'm coming to the end of this. It might be time to kind of burn it down and just say, this is enough." And I go through these stages with this show, because this show is impactful, but it's also it's a chore. It's a job. And to a person, each one of them said, no, not time to do that, but it is time to make some changes, because what you're doing is unsustainable. And a few people have said this from the beginning, and I respect them for sticking by their guns, because what you think is achievable as you set out, not soon, but it does become apparent that it's a pace that may not be sustainable. So I've been doing these episodes for the most part once a week, except for maybe a couple of times here when I take a couple week break at holidays. And I don't know if anybody really understands what it means to do a podcast. And if you kind of do it right and you care about it, you take your time with it. You listen to it, you edit it, you clean it up so both you and the guest don't sound like an idiot. Because I tend to sound like an idiot. And some people out there are going to tell you I am an idiot. And I'll tell you I'm sometimes an idiot. But in editing, we can clear some of that up, some of my ums and some of my repetitive words. And I can make myself sound a little more learned than I am. But in doing so, I listen to these stories 2 or 3 times over. More like 4 or 5 times over. And it's a lot. And it's a lot to take on. It's a lot to listen to. It's a lot to get done in a week. By the time Wednesday comes around and I release a show, I don't really celebrate that show because I know I'm getting ready for next Wednesday. And I'm trying to chase down an episode. I'm trying to chase down a guest. I'm trying to chase down interviews. There's a lot of work that goes into it. I know it's a big sob story. I guess my point is it's a lot for me. And in order for me to branch out, or in order for me to grow certain areas of my life and this podcast and what I want this to become, I kind of have to lighten some of that load. And so I'm going to listen to these guys for once. And I know there's 4 or 5, maybe even 6 people sitting there going, it's about fucking time. So I'm going to listen to these guys. I'm going to release episodes a little differently. I'm going to start with this episode this week, and it's going to be a part 1, because I'm going to break down these longer episodes into 2 or 3 parts and spread them out over time. And that's not going to be easy, because now I have to decide, where do I break these episodes up? And sometimes there might not be a possibility of breaking them up smoothly or coherently. And so I may have to just put it out anyway. This week, this one presented itself perfectly to me. I think there's a nice natural break to split this up, give you an hour here, an hour there, and then we'll be done with it. It's a great episode. He's a fascinating guest. He's funny, and he's also been through some of the same shit we've all been through. So, with that being said, this is going to be a 2-parter. This is obviously part 1. Next week will be part 2, and I'm going to see how this format goes. I'm going to see if it allows me some time to build on other aspects of what I want to do in the show and in life. And I've said it all along. I need a show. I need to do something where I bring some levity to my life. because this show is heavy. And when I was in the fire department, all that was kind of heavy. And the last few years for me has been heavy. Last 7 years or so has been heavy. I need levity. I need more laughter. I need more enjoyment. There's a lot of things I need to get on track. And so I can only do that with extra time, and I have to create that extra time in my life. And this is one way to do it. So this will allow for me to do some extra things like more writing, maybe create another show. Look to the future for building what I want to build and how I want it to look. And hopefully engage you guys more and more of you guys, because I want to grow an audience base. I want to get this show out as far and as wide as possible. And I want to build off of that. I want to create some opportunities to get out there and go face to face with people. That's where that's where this show started, was face to face. Me sitting across the table from somebody like TJ, like Stephanie from the 5 After Midnight show, like Brian Plakin, who was an early guest of mine. It's just, I enjoy that face to face with people so much. It's why I do my interviews via video links. I don't really release any video, but it gives me the chance to look at people and engage them a little better. And I would like to do that more on a more human level, where I go to you or you come to me, or we meet in the middle and we sit down and we have a conversation and we record together. And it is just that, a conversation, because that's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for a conversation in life. And we as first responders, we as firefighters, we as veterans, we as active duty military, as trauma nurses, trauma surgeons, whatever you are, a dispatcher, I don't care what it is. We all have a story and we all want to have a conversation. And that's what this platform is. This platform, my Substack, it's all about conversation. And to that end, I would love to open up my Substack to a guest writer here and there. If you have a story you want to share, send it in. Let me post it. Let me publish it for you. Let's get people talking about what you want to talk about as well. And that's easy. You can find that at thethingsweallcarry.substack.com. Join that conversation, join the family there, and let's grow that. Let's grow that interaction. Let's grow that support. It's fascinating to get feedback. I love it. And we can build off of it. I want to build off that feedback there. I want to build off the feedback here. I want to build off the feedback on any social media outlet. And I want to get out there. I want to meet people. I want to get your stories, and I want to get them out to other people so they know they're not alone, because we're not alone in any of this. And we shouldn't have to sit there wondering or thinking that, that builds. And matter of fact, Eric talks about it in his episode today. You get that thought in your head and you just start to ruminate on it. And then you start to convince yourself of it. And it's a false narrative. It is a false narrative that we build these dark clouds on. And then we let those clouds settle in over our life for no reason. Because what we've done is we convinced ourselves of something that's total bullshit. And even if there's a little bit of truth here and there, it's not where our mind is going. Our mind plays tricks on us, especially when we get dark and we get down. And I want people to know that it's natural to start those thoughts, but we need to stop them. We need to interrupt them. We need to reverse them. We need to bring some light to the darkness. And I sit there and I do that myself. I ruminate on thoughts, and I did it this weekend. I did it yesterday. I did it. I get into my head that about a negative thought becomes doom and gloom. And then I keep sinking lower and lower. I fight for it. I fight for myself, and I dig myself out of it, and I move on. But I know that it's there, and I know it's there for most people. And so my whole point of the show is to make sure that you are not alone in anything that's going on. There is somebody, and normally a lot of somebody's going through the same exact thing, or something that mimics the same thing. And so that's what this is for. Let's talk, let's get that out, and let's expose it. Let's clear it up and let's move forward and live life to the fullest. Welcome to episode 118 of The Things We All Carry. Today I have Eric. Eric is out of Central Florida, and it's kind of a small world kind of thing. No pun intended for you Disney people, but it's kind of a small world thing because Eric grew up very close to where I grew up. Matter of fact, I was basically one street away from going to the same school that he went to in high school. Only difference is Eric stayed in Florida and I got out when I was 18 and haven't really been back since. But Eric's been a firefighter for going on 25 years. He's a former paramedic. He's been married for 17 years. He's got one teenage daughter. And he turned some of that darkness of his that he was experiencing on the job. And, he'd convinced himself that he was the funniest man in the room. And we all like to do that. As firefighters, we all like to say, I'm fucking funny, and listen to what I have to say. Most of the time, we aren't that funny. But Eric turned it into a side gig. He is now a stand-up comedian, and he's working the circuit in Florida. He's hosting shows. He's doing open mics. He's doing paid gigs, and he's a funny dude. He's just legit. He's a funny dude. He's got some serious shit in his background. He's reacted to it some of the same ways we have, but now he puts some of that energy that he's experiencing and he's garnering, and he's putting it into comedy, and he's benefiting off of it like that. And then his audience has benefited from it. And so this was a fascinating conversation. This today will be part one of that conversation. Part two will be next week. And I can't wait to hear what you think. If you reach out to me at stack@thethingsweallcarry or on Substack, thethingsweallcarry.substack.com, or Instagram @thethingsweallcarry. Let me know what you think. Share the show. Get the word out there. Let's get more people listening and more involvement. And let's just see where it all goes, man. This is it's been a journey, and I want to see where the rest of this journey goes. So you guys enjoy the show, and then you get outside and do something for yourselves. A quick reminder to please help us build a community which not only recognizes but supports each other through the struggles and recovery. Reach out through Instagram @thethingsweallcarry or email mystory@thethingsweallcarry.com to offer support and share your story. Please remember to leave a review on iTunes and give a shout out to any first responder you know, love, or care about. Y'all enjoy the show. Get ready. Let's see what happens on this conversation, and see where we go with it. Awesome. Well, welcome back to The Things We All Carry. Today, I have Eric. Eric is out of Central Florida. He's been a firefighter. You're going on 25 years is what you said, correct, Eric?
Yep.
He's
25 now.
He's been married for
October 99.
He's been married for 17, and he's got one teenage daughter. And he is not only a firefighter, he used to be a paramedic. He kind of got rid of that, and I can understand why there. That's a lot of people are doing that lately. So he's a firefighter, father, married, and he's also a stand-up comedian, which we're going to get into that a little bit as we get into the conversation. So, Eric, welcome to the show. Thanks for being here.
Oh, thanks for having me out today, man. Appreciate it.
So where did you grow up? And even before we get started with all those things, see, I told you I had the three questions, and I was going to screw something up. I'm going to start with the one, and the one is about music. I like to know what people are listening to. So what was the last song you remember hearing?
Oh, man. The last time I was driving my daughter to school today, and one of the things her and I bond over is music, and she was showing me some songs, and I showed her, there's this young girl who's she's kind of like this synth pop singer, but her name's Sophie and the Giants, and she teams up with some other like synthesizer dude, and her name's Purple Disco Machine. But yeah, it's just synth pop, just fun, upbeat stuff. So I'm showing her some of that.
That's a great way to bond with kids, though.
Yeah, she's into like all kinds of music, and I'm a music nerd, but and a product of the '80s. So I get excited when these newer bands are dropping this heavy synth pop.
That's very cool. And I'm sure she'll remember that stuff. And it's a great, like I said, it's a great way to connect. So tell me a little bit about yourself. Where did you grow up? Where are you born and raised in Florida? And what's the deal?
Yeah, so I've been in Florida since I was in first grade. So like 82, 83. Been in the Central Florida area the whole time. Grew up in Seminole County, Florida, which is just outside of Orlando. And now I'm currently living beachside, or just south of Cocoa Beach area. But yeah, I've been pretty much in Florida my whole life that I can remember, you know. Yeah, I love Florida, man. It's my favorite place.
It's funny because we have some similarities.
Yeah.
I moved to Florida when it was fourth grade for me, but I moved just to the neighboring county of you because I grew up in Orange County, and it was one street over from Seminole County. So I knew that area well. I don't know it well anymore because I've been gone more than I was there. But yeah, so we had a little parallel experience there growing up in Florida. So I appreciate that. So what was childhood like for you? Mom and dad together all the entire time, or what was the deal? What was school like? All that stuff.
Yeah, I tried to mess with a joke about it the other day that I was a cool nerdy kid, you know, but which was kind of a blessing and a curse because the nerds, you know, they thought you were too cool for them, and the cool kids thought you were too nerdy for them, you know. But I was kind of friends with everybody. Grew up surfing, skating, hanging out, you know, big into music. My parents, they were married until they got divorced like right after my senior year. So, you know, I pretty much grew up in a two-family home, you know, or two-parent home for the most part, you know. But I remember one time I had a counselor ask me how was my childhood, and I was like, I don't know. She's like, was it normal? I'm like, no one has normal childhoods.
No.
She goes, no, plenty of people do. I'm like, yeah, they're liars.
Yeah, right.
So,
Florida's a weird place to grow up too, for some reason. There's a different era to it when you grow up in Florida, I think, especially during the 1980s.
yeah, you know, we were definitely some kind of free-range chickens back then, you know, more so than nowadays.
Yeah, I think that's a very
Yeah, that's
appropriate
cool.
way. That's a very appropriate way of putting it. We were definitely free-range chickens. I know that.
Yeah, I remember the first time I drove to the beach to go surfing, you know, like I didn't even have to ask for directions. I just knew how to get there from going there my whole life as a kid, you know.
No, it's all the back roads too. Nobody got on the little highways at the time. It was all back roads, and you got there a lot faster. Yeah, everyone knew the shortcut if you lived there.
Yeah,
So-
dude, now like I don't think my daughter even knows how to get to our house. And they've been looking at their phones all the time.
So growing up in Seminole County, and this is a personal question, was it Daytona or New Smyrna for you?
Oh, as far as like where I would go, sir,
Yeah.
New Smyrna.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah,
Good.
New Smyrna.
Good. Yeah. I think we all hit New Smyrna way more than Daytona.
Oh yeah, old dirt tona. We called it back then, you know.
So how do you find your way to
Well, hey, Ponce would get fun.
what's that?
I said Ponce would get fun though on the right swell. Ponce Inlet.
No, you're right. It would.
Yeah,
You're right.
New Smyrna.
Yep. I agree with you. So how do you find your way to the fire service?
You know, kind of a fluke, man. I grew up wanting to be an astronaut, and another joke here. I guess I didn't have the right stuff, you know. But right out of high school, man, I wanted to go to. It's like I was convinced I could make it into med school. Not sure where I got that idea from, but I started at Valencia Community College, and I figured that I would take an EMT course, and that would be a good, you know, medical intro and allow me to. At the time, I was a lifeguard, you know, right out of high school. So I'm like, oh, this allow me to advance in the lifeguard world and open up more opportunities kind of in the pre-hospital setting. Give me a job to do while I'm trying to get into med school, which obviously never happened. But yeah, and then it just kind of, the piece, you know, farted around for a couple of years, you know, in and out of classes in college and working a bunch of, you know, lifeguard jobs. Finally, I was like, you know, I think I was 20 years old. I was like, you know what, I got to do something. Back when I was a kid, I wanted to be a fireman like every kid. And I had an uncle who was a chief up in Philadelphia. And I remember as a kid, I'd be like, Dad, what do you think about me being a fireman? And he's like, you know, I don't know if I want that for you. And I just kind of fell in place. I already had half of the things done, you know, EMT. So I was halfway there. I liked surfing. I liked the schedule. You know, I liked the idea of helping people. I already had a background and, you know, as a basic first responder, as a lifeguard. So it just kind of fell in place. I needed something to do, and something I was always interested in. So I went to fire standards and literally graduated standards on my 21st birthday.
And so, and then you find your way into a department. It's not, you say you started somewhere else before you got to your department you're in right now, correct?
Yeah. So when I was 21, that was probably had to been 96. So at the time back then, there was an average 2 years to get hired. Like that was just the norm.
Right.
And basically you had to, good luck if you were a paramedic. So I spent, I would say a year and a half, maybe spent the first 6 months trying to find a job as an EMT, tested for like Jacksonville, Atlantic Beach, the semi-fire department. And then I got into paramedic school, and I finished paramedic school when I was 23. And literally I had a job offer from Brevard, Seminole, and like Deltona within a week. So, yeah, that's kind of how it all fell into place. It finally became a professional paid fireman at 23 years old.
And that was, you said 99, correct?
Yeah. Well, I started in Seminole in 99.
Nice. So how do you find it? What is it to your liking? Is it something that you get into and you go, man, I made the right choice? What do you find it as a young 20s in that career?
So starting off at Seminole, man, I was like a young punk surfer, you know what I mean? Like, so I was 23 and I was all about, just punk rock and surfing. And, it was weird for me kind of going in, because the guys in Seminole, I love them to death in hindsight, some of the greatest humans I've ever had the privilege of knowing. And, but, at 23, I was like, punk surfer. I'm like, man, I didn't feel like I fit in, and, back then, they rode me pretty hard as a rookie because I was just a goofy punk surfer. So I was definitely right to be messed with. And yeah, it was, I didn't know. That's all I knew. Are you allowed to cuss on here?
Oh, fuck yeah. Yeah, of course.
Yeah, I didn't know. I mean, it's all the job I had. It was the job I started, and this is what I was doing. So I didn't know what to expect. And what I got then became what I expected. I'm like, this is it. If that makes sense.
It does. It does make sense in a way. It's kind of hard to explain to people when they ask, well, how do you know it's the right job, or how do you know, when do you know? And I think everyone has that moment on this job where you go, yeah, I did. This is the right choice.
Yeah. And it was, my first year on the job was real hard. Because I had no fire experience, other than standards. And I volunteered a little bit while I was looking for a job, but, we didn't do anything volunteering. So I had zero experience. I just had, just desire to do well. And so I came on as a brand new paramedic with zero experience. And I was working with guys that were experienced. And I would say 9 out of 10 of them, held it against me that, hey, dude, this guy doesn't know shit. But
yeah.
I would say there were a couple that really stood up. I was like, nah, man, this dude was going to put in the effort. Just, you got to give him, and you got to understand he's brand fucking new, So, yeah, it was, trial by fire, and I learned. But in Seminole, man, those guys that I worked with, that I came up under, like, they were hilarious. They were Johnny on the spot, and you wanted to be like them, So I tried real hard to fit in and do well, because that's how you kind of made your name, like how you responded on calls, how you acted, how your critical thinking was. Those were the things that kind of set up who you were to your coworkers,
Yeah. Not only that, but I don't know how Seminole County was when you were doing that, but I remember telling rookies in my department that I just left that we would get detailed quite often. We'd get shipped out to other fire stations just to cover. And I would, I've always made sure to tell rookies, this is your time. I mean, listen, you have to put on this show when you're at our station, but when you go out to other stations, now's your time to actually shine, because people are watching every move you make. And whether you know it or not, it's a tryout.
Yeah, that's true. Floating around to other stations, that's where, you got to prove yourself that you're decent. You're not a shitbag.
Yeah.
But, I'll tell you, my first day on the job, I literally walking into Seminole County, first day as a paid firefighter, Buddy Mills was the lieutenant. And I love the guy for this. He literally, and I never forgot it. He brought me in and set me down. He was a floating lieutenant. He just happened to be floating into the station that day. And he brought me in and sat me down. He goes, hey, look, here's the deal. I don't know you. These guys don't know you. We may never fight a fire together. We may never see you in the shit. You know, we don't know you. The things that will allow us to know you and get an idea for who you are is you wake up, is that dishwasher empty? Is that flag up? Are you doing your rookie details? And that just permeated with me. And so I knew if I was a good rookie, like those things would carry me kind of through. And then same thing, like when you float to another station, especially your first couple of years, you better show them guys you do what you're supposed to do. And that allows them to believe when they get a call with you that you're going to do what you're supposed to do.
So how long do you stay with Seminole County?
I stayed with them until 2007. And it's just shy of 8 years.
So that's a good run. Yeah.
Yeah, well, it was. It was good. It was at that moment where do I leave or do I not leave to another department? Because I think I was 32 at the time. So yeah, it was a pivotal moment, but I chose to go to a bigger department, with greener grass. Supposedly.
I was going to say, I hear the laughter and I've talked to a number of people who have left smaller departments to go to the greener grass and have sworn that they would never do it again. Is that what you found or is that just kind of laughing that off a little bit?
It's probably to all the above, but I think the best adage I've ever heard was the same circus, different clowns.
Yeah.
It's the same thing. It's just a different tent that you go and play in.
Yep. I think that's
different clowns.
I think that's a perfect explanation of it. Yeah. Same circus, different clowns. It is. You find many of the same issues and sometimes they're just expanded.
Yeah. Yeah. Totally. And then looking back, it's Seminole, man. At the time I was young and trying to, go to a bigger city but yeah, I worked with some of the greatest dudes I've ever known over there. So some great clowns there too.
So what was the deciding factor to leave and move to it? Is it just the opportunity?
Yeah. And I just gotten married, or I was just about to get married, and I think I had stars in my eyes, and I was like, man, I want to see if I could do this, and my roommate, the guy that was a roommate of mine for years, he had just went over there, and I had some friends that were getting on. I'm like, you used to get excited, and it's the big city in your neighborhood, and you want to see if you can do it. And next thing you know, you go through the test, and you're like, oh, we're doing this. And then you get the job offer, and, it's just, well, the big thing, the truth of it was like the SOPs were better. At the time, they didn't transport. The department that I was going to didn't transport. They had better SOPs, better tactics, better equipment, a lot of better policies. And so that was a big draw. But like everything changes though,
So then you start with your department in what year? 2007, you said?
April of 2007, I started. Mm-hmm.
Hey guys, quick break right here just to check in and thank each of you for listening to the show. Your support has been paramount and I appreciate all of you. I have one request though. I need you to share the show with everyone you know. Help me get the word out and spread these stories as far and as wide as we can. While you're at it, please leave a review of the show wherever you happen to listen. Feel free to reach out to me at any time to share your story, to talk, or to pass on suggestions. Let's get on with the rest of the show.
So what do you find? What do you find when you get there? Do you do a whole rookie year all over again and that entire thing?
So when I got there, I started at a single engine house. So there was only 4 of us. And at the time I was 32. So yeah, I was the rookie, but there was just a formality along the lines of not rocking the boat and making sure the floors are mopped and the bathrooms clean. But as far as like the rookie hazing, the station I was at, the guys were my age or a little older. And I think they realized like either, A, they're not going to mess with me, or B, like, hey, this guy's not a life rookie, He's just a dude who's a senior than us, So I didn't have any of that rookie stuff going on there. It was basically like just a transition. over, if you will. But yeah, it was good. It was interesting, just kind of starting over, but it wasn't hard or anything like that.
Through the whole time with Seminole and then moving on to another department, how are you? I know you're experiencing calls. You're dealing with certain, we'll call them traumas, whatever we want to call them. And that's a different time period, 99 to the early 2000s, where things like that were dealt with completely differently than we deal with things today, correct?
Yeah. It's so much so. Here's a story you'll appreciate. When I first started Seminole, we had a guy hit by a semi on a May 1792. You know what I mean? The guy got hit by a semi late at night over by Flea World. I'm sure you probably remember that.
Yeah, I remember it all. Yeah.
And so dude got hit by a semi, and this is like late 2, 3 in the morning. This is back when I was a brand new paramedic. FHP already had the guy covered with a yellow bag, and the guys at my station, they're like, because I was a brand new medic, and they're like, "Hey man, you need to go up there and look at that guy." And I said I was a young punk. I was like, "Nah, I'm good. He's already got a yellow bag over him. FHP standing by." I'm like, "There's nothing to call him. They've already deemed it, And they're like, you need to go look at him." I'm like, "What?" So the guy literally walked me up there and made me look at the bag and lift the bag and look at this dude that was split in half. And we work together now. Like he went on to a bigger department too. We work together. And I'll tell you, once a year he comes up to me and he's like, "Bro, I owe you the biggest apology in life. Like I never should have done that to you." And I was like, "Bro, like that was the culture." Like I was like, "I don't hold that against you. Like you thought you were doing the right thing. You thought you were, that's just how we thought back. Like you didn't do anything wrong." And as a matter of fact, this guy was kind of like a big brother to me when I first got hired. And he was one of the 10% that believed in me and took me under his wing. Like my lieutenant wasn't even trained with me. He was that old school, like, you better know this stuff and don't bother me kind of guy. But this dude trained with me all the time. That's the same guy that made me walk over and look at the body, and he apologizes to me to this day. And I'm like, "Bro, that was the culture then,
Yeah. And it's weird because I've brought up that kind of subject before, death note, or not death note, going in and calling a body, just listening for heart tones and doing that entire thing. And you're like, okay, so typically that would be a job you'd send in a rookie. Okay, go listen and see if you hear anything, right? And now it's like, okay, do you really need to do that? But then at some point he or she is going to do that. And so how do you balance out unnecessary with necessary? Does that make sense?
Yeah, and I don't know the answer, and I think that's where it comes to policing ourselves. Like, there was a call here recently where one of the lieutenants on one of our truck companies, there was a handful of pediatric fatalities, and they knew it walking up, and he held everybody back. He goes, "Hey, you guys hold off. I've only got a couple years left. My kids are grown. I'm going to go and take a look at this, and I'll let you know in a second." And I think that's where we're seeing the conversation shift and people that are cognizant of that. I think that's kind of like, hey, yeah, you're going to see this stuff. I can't shield you from it all, but I think some people are trying to lessen the impact,
I think that has a huge part to do with that whole notion of let's know our crews, let's know our let's treat everybody like kind of like a family. And that way, where everybody stands in life. Like you just said, as you, in the introduction, we talked about, you have a teenage daughter. So if there's a call, on your next shift where there's a teenage girl involved, maybe that's not the one for you. I don't know. It's just a matter of knowing your people.
Yeah, it is. And then, you remember the movie, The Gods Must Be Crazy, where someone starts a fire and like 80 buffaloes show up and stomp it out. Like, that's kind of how we are, the fire department I'm at now, and there's enough of us that we can kind of try to mitigate some of that. But yeah, I think you're right. I think there's a little bit of self-policing and keeping an eye on each other, A lot of mental health, I equate to being like a 12 lead. Like, you got to look for signs and symptoms in people. Like, are they showing elevation? Are they showing markers? Are they showing indicators? And these are the things that we got to look for in each other.
All right, so you get to this bigger department, and I'm familiar with the department. I know the area. It's kind of wide ranging. You've got differences in socioeconomics. You've got a whole bunch. You've got variety in that area. How does that go for you? So for the last however many, 2 decades basically, how's that been for you in the larger department? What are you finding? What are you experiencing? How are you dealing with it?
That was definitely the biggest shift from Seminole was the call quality. The volume significantly increased, but the quality significantly decreased. Like we have a large homeless populace. We do run on them a lot. And a lot of times they do need care. And a lot of times they don't need care. It was just a cell phone caller who saw one sleeping in a bush and cared enough to call 911. And it's as simple as that. So yeah, we have a lot of that. And then you do have, the socioeconomic barriers of some communities where, you could argue like, they're abusing the system. But at the end of the day, when you look more human perspective, it's a lot of socioeconomic limiting factors, and EMS becomes their primary healthcare provider, and we all hate the 2 a.m. toothache call, and it's BS, but sometimes that's all people have. Like, they don't have dental insurance. They don't have health insurance. And they put that nagging tooth off till it's unbearable at 2 a.m., Those are real socioeconomic issues that affect our system, the fire service, fire EMS service, and I didn't really have it to that degree at Seminole, those type of lower acuity calls.
Yeah, that makes sense where you say, you increase your call volume, but you decrease your call quality. And of course that happens because, like you said, you're running these medicals that aren't necessary in a way, but are very necessary in other ways.
Yeah. And then that's where it's hard, trying to remind yourself of that, especially on your 20th call of the shift. And you're like, you do want to get frustrated, but you try to not lose perspective of it. Sometimes it's not people's fault, a lot of times it is, but sometimes it's not, that they're calling 911 for a toothache at 3 a.m.
Shit. Some of it is just misunderstanding and pure ignorance, and not ignorance in a bad way, just actual definition of ignorance, not knowing.
100%. And that ignorance becomes more frustrating when there's 4 cars in the driveway.
Yes.
Or they, you get there and they tell you they didn't want to wake their family members up and ask you to be quiet.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you will come someone with 1 of 4 cars.
The best notes that you ever see are requests a silent run. Well, we don't really do that. So.
Yeah, exactly.
So when do you notice things are starting to pile up for you? Because things do, and you start to seek an outlet. So when do you notice these things start piling up for you, and you're starting to equate, okay, these are the experiences, and this is what it's manifesting itself as?
Yeah, I would say arguably, daughter was born in 2010. So I think when I added that to the plate, I was on my first engineer's promotional list. So I was riding on rescues all the time and floating throughout the city. We have 17 different stations. So I was primarily floating to rescues straight for 2 years. My daughter had just been born. We had just taken over transport. So now we're transporting to the hospital. And I'd say during that time, and at the same time, I was, started nursing school stuff, wrapping up my bachelor's degree in nursing. I would say during that time was when I noticed that the plate was full. And when I first got into the fire service, I didn't even drink coffee, and then here I am in 2010, overwhelmed, tired, up all night, newborn, in nursing school. And so I went to the psychiatrist. I'm like, oh man, I think I got ADD. I need to get some Adderall. So she's like, oh, you firemen are all the same. You guys, you just want stimulants to stay up all night. I'm like, hey, all due respect, I don't need stimulants to keep me awake at night. I've got work that'll keep me awake all night, Yeah, they'll call all hours of the day. I don't need a stimulant. The tones will keep me up all night. But yeah, then during that time, I remember I had to fill out this questionnaire, like 100 different questions, and everything was a yes, no, hypersexual. It's like put a dot in the middle, and then just stupid questions. And like that one, for example, she's like, "Hey, why couldn't you answer if you're hypersexual?" I'm like, I don't know. I'm like, yeah, I want to bang everything I see, but I don't because I'm married. Like, how do you define that? Yeah. And so then like another question, do you feel like you're smarter than others? Another dot in the middle. I'm like, yeah, I know a lot of idiots, but I know a lot of smart people. Depends on my environment. So anyway, she's like, I don't think you're ADD. I think you're PTSD and other stuff. And I was like, this lady's fucking crazy, man. So fast forward, I'm in nursing school, and then I'm getting more intimate with the psychology classes and stuff. And I learned about the DSM-5, and I saw how she came to the conclusions that I had some PTSD issues. And I fast forward a couple more years, we had a chief commit suicide.
Yeah.
And I wasn't a fan of his at all. I hated the guy. I with a fucking passion, hated the guy. Because he was a nerd, he was a douche, but he fucked with people. And he hid behind his bugle in doing so. He always hid behind the bugle. And it's like, just trying, over trying, like, bro, don't, you know what I mean? And his death made me kind of realize that, and I felt bad. I had a hard time with his passing because I was like, damn, dude, if he would have just been himself, he would have probably been all right. But he tried to be someone other than he wasn't. And I realized that was the wall that he had built. And as fireman, I failed to see that and breach that wall to the guy on the other side. So did everybody else. No one was able to breach that wall. The culture built that. He built that wall thinking that's who he had to be. And he passed. And I don't know what I can't speak for him. He's not here, but tell you, it made me realize a lot of things.
So you take that and about what year was that?
Dude, that might have been 2016, 17. Yeah, somewhere around there, 2016, 2017.
And I know you guys aren't immune to other suicides in your department and that area in general. I mean, just recently you guys had one, correct?
We just had one a week ago. Less than a week with his funeral. It was a week ago. Yep, another lieutenant, man. So, but yeah, it's I tell you, moving forward, I had a day where I was stressed out from work. I think I was on my second or third engineer's list, and we were supposed to be going to my daughter's 8th birthday and merging into traffic. And my wife's like arguing with me about merging into traffic, and I can't even merge into traffic right. Her and I are arguing, and I'm like, dude, I drive fire trucks and I know how to fucking put a Dodge Ram. I know how to merge, dude, So now we're going at it. It just, everything's heading south. And I was like, you know what? I'm not making this day better. Drop me off it. I'm going to go home. You guys go to the birthday dinner without me. It's heated. I'm not making it better. And so they dropped me off at the house and they went without me, and they came back and got me as I sat there on the couch by myself, thinking about the day before while I was at work. I'm getting all these beautiful photos of my wife and daughter getting ready for, the birthday the next day, and getting their nails done, having a great day, awesome things in life. And I was at work that day. Well, here's the day I'm home. Shit's hitting the fan. And I'm sitting on the couch by myself, right? And that thought crept in. I was like, oh my God, my family is better without me. My family is better without, and I'm like, and I realized, I'm like, dude, that's the mask, that's the snorkel. I'm now looking underwater. That's where the thought creeps in. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think that's when it set home that these are the intrusive thoughts. These are the things that cause the demise of, people with PTSD.
Yeah.
And because that's a false narrative.
It's a false narrative. And you start to ruminate on it, though. And if you allow it to just sit there and fester.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%. 100%. Yeah. And then I think that's when I started being a little more empathetic, and I'm like, damn, it's not necessarily like, and you talk to any fireman, and even ones that, like, even my friends that were, on some gnarly stuff, that were at the pulse and whatnot, like, though, even those guys, like, dude, it's never the calls. And granted, even if it is the calls, they're things, but it's often the peripheral BS and just the culture as a whole. And you start realizing you coming home, you're not making things better, and all the guys I talk to at work, it's the shit they drag home, and it's usually never calls. It's usually the periphery, the periphery stuff. Of which, I don't know. That's the culture I argue about. Like, Gandhi said, service to others is the greatest reward to humans. If that's the case, why do we have so many suicides and mental health issues in our profession? And at some point, it's obviously not in service to others. I think it's the potentiating stressors of the culture in and of itself.
Well, that's what I was,
on top of
what? I'm sorry, I interrupted you.
Oh, I would say, and I did not to discredit acute exposures to traumatic incidents, but on top of those as well.
And I was going to ask you, so this, you're told, well, you think you have, they think you have PTSD, and you're like, fuck that, I don't have it. And then you're in nursing school, and you this DSM comes in front of you, and you start reading it, and you go, oh, okay. So obviously for you, it wasn't an acute form of PTSD. It was more cumulative, correct?
Very much so. Of which, fast forward, I was on like my fourth engineer's test, and I was on the rescues again, floating to rescues 24/7. I think the shift before we had a double shooting, and then I think that same night, even it's all blends together, but a double shooting, I think that same night or even the night before, walked in on a rape that was being committed in a nightclub, and just a stack of stuff, man. And I needed a day off the box, off the rescue, and it wasn't my month to be off the box, and I was on the promotion list. And basically, I couldn't get off the box. I was venting because I'm an open book. Like, I talk shit all day. And I was like, man, we got at one of our fire stations, our downtown station, we've got this photo of this chief that killed himself. He's on the wall. We walk past it every day, but are we asking ourselves why or what led to it? Or what are we doing to prevent it? I'm like, I'm not doing well right now. And then I wasn't suicidal, but I'm like, I'm not. I need to decompress. I need some time. And I forgot how I even got on that, but I think those are the things that lead to weird places.
So what do you do with that info? What do you do with that realization that, okay, no, I do have this going on, and I need to do something? What was your short-term solution, and what's the long-term solution?
So that's okay. That's where we were going. I initially ended up getting led to UCF Restores.
Right.
So at the time, my acute solution was I turned down the engineer promotion list. So I got promoted to engineer, but that was sending me accepting the promotion was putting me on arguably the busiest rescue in the city. And for $72 extra a week.
Yeah, no.
Like, that's not a promotion.
No.
My quality of life's going to go further shit.
That's a fucking punishment.
And I was losing I was losing my seniority. So I'd be starting over as an engineer. So I lose all my seniority. At the time, I was kind of a senior fireman. So I was like, I turned down the promotion. And I didn't realize the negative aspect. I didn't realize that would make me kind of feel like a failure professionally,
Right.
you know, for turning down a promotion. But you know as well as I do, is even though we change seats on the fire truck and t-shirt colors, we go to the same fucking call.
Yep.
It's the same job. Each promotion, you just carry one less bag into something, you know? It's like, but you're still on the same fucking calls with just a different color t-shirt.
Right.
So guys that looked at me negatively for turning down $72 a week on a fucking rescue, fuck them, you know what I mean? And then for the guys that understood it, yeah, you're my boy, Blue, you know? Which a lot did, which a lot of them did. But I then ended up getting directed to UCF for stores. And that was very interesting. I know they do a lot of great things for a lot of firemen. And if anybody needs them, definitely reach out and see if they can help you. But for me, it got a little bit more disheartening because during the intake process, you know, it's an online questionnaire. Then they have somebody call you and you go through pre-screening with them. And then they end up having like a PhD guy call you and you go through another screening with him. And that was like a 2-hour process. And he's like, look, man, you have what we consider complex PTSD. We primarily focus on the treatment of acute PTSD through desensitization techniques, like a pulse type incident. Like how do we reframe your neural framework to not have you have a trigger? You know what I mean? When you see or smell something or hear something, like it's desensitization is from my understanding. Complex PTSD, like I have dreams about work often, but they're scenario based. Like I'll walk in on a PD code, but it's not a PD code I was ever on. You know what I mean? Or I'll have some dreams of my daughter and they're gnarly, like normal people wouldn't have a dream seeing their daughter. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So everything I have is more, I don't have any acute stress. I don't have any one specific call that keeps coming back to me. Upsets me. Now I do think about old calls or weird calls, but they never reoccur or cause me an issue. But I think it's because I'm an empathetic bitch, you know, like I'll hear a song on a commercial, fucking cry, or I'll see a scene in a movie and cry, or even sometimes I'll see a roadside marker with a cross and I'm like, oh man, that was someone's brother. Or and then I get empathetic and tear up, you know? So I think that's just how I am as a human. I'm the empathetic side, I'm more sensitive, you know, as opposed to maybe the visualization traumatic side, but that's had its toll, you know?
Yeah. UCF Restores is a fascinating project, basically. It's more than a project. It's well established, but it is a desensitization, and they take that incident and they replay it and replay it and replay it and replay it, and not to the point of smells and feelings and sounds and wind and all kinds of stuff. And they try to recreate it as much as possible for you. And they put you through it and they put you through it until you can talk about it, like you said, without being triggered. That doesn't work for a complex PTSD. You're right. So what do you do with complex PTSD?
I don't know.
Well, what did you do?
I do personally? Not know. I'm still trying to figure it out, to be honest with you. Because I went and saw a counselor, and it just kind of the way the cards and pieces and parts fell in place. She's not even necessarily a PTSD counselor. She's just a general, but she's such a sweetheart, and I loved her to death. And I talked to her, and the biggest thing for her, she just made me feel normal. Like I'd go in and talk about like an argument with my wife, and she just kind of validates your opinions. But that just got to the point of like, all right, well, what am I doing? Like, and sometimes you go in and it's like, I've got this stuff tucked away in a storage facility. I don't want to keep going and unpacking these boxes every week, especially on stuff that's not bothering. So I don't know. I try to deal with it, like I probably been in a bad headspace the past couple weeks since the passing of one of our firefighters since he committed suicide. I don't know. Like I just reached out the other day trying to see about going through one of those facilitated, legal ketamine things. I'm interested in that. I'm interested in definitely more neural reframing of my mindset. But I'm trying to be better. Like, I had a really rough weekend with my wife, and it started arguably with the passing of our firefighter because, dude, I almost committed suicide one time, and I was very lucky it didn't happen. And I think what this gentleman just killed himself, like that even made me feel like a failure. Does that make sense?
That makes total sense.
Like,
yeah.
I mean, that's so. Fuck, I'll be an open book here. I had guns, and I'm not a gun guy. But I had them, especially after the whole COVID thing, and then living here at the beach, and we get hurricanes and we lose power, and our fence blows down. So I had, I had a nice AR. It was cool. I'm fucking not a gun guy. And then I had a 9mm. So I ended up having to sell them because I had a bad day one day, and I was like, man, I was going to do this. And a few nights before, we had somebody banging on our door, and I grabbed my gun, and I never keep a clip in it, and I put the clip in it, and I went outside, and it was just kid. Oh, no big deal. You know what I mean? It was in my pocket. It was kids. No issue. Like, I think they were door banging. They're, ding dong ditching. All right, no big deal. Went inside, put the gun back in the gun box. Well, fast forward a few days later, bad spot. And I was like, man, I pulled my gun out. I'm like, man, I just want to feel the power. Chambered it, put it to my head, and I just was going through the motions, just feeling the slide, and I wanted to pull the trigger. And something interjected, bro. I don't know how it happened. I just literally pointed at the bed instead of my head, because I had it in my head, and thank God enough in my brain, something. I pulled it against the bed, and I shot a hole through my mattress. And how that happened, you ready? How that happened was because I never keep a clip in my gun.
Yeah.
And that day the people knocked on the door, I put the clip in and went to the door, and I never chamber it. You know what I mean? So now the day that I'm in a bad space, I pull my gun out, I chamber it because I want to feel the slide, the power of it. I put it to my head, and I want to pull the trigger and go through the motions, man. And then thank God I didn't, and I just pointed at my bed. Well, it was a loaded gun, dude. Now I just shot through my mattress.
Yeah.
That's like, holy fuck.
Yeah, that'll scare the shit out of you.
I don't own guns now.
Right.
And for me, that's how I cope. I got rid of guns, and it was a big eye opener for me that my family would have found me. There would have been no note. There would have been nothing but questions, dude. Like, there's no note, just me. They would have meant nothing, dude. And then, so I forgot how the fuck I was even got on that, but yeah, that was a big eye opener. They like, if you go to dark places, I needed to reduce things that could allow me to hurt myself impulsively.
Yeah,
quick, and so that was basically the big thing I did, and I try to recognize my emotions, but yeah, I did. One of the things I didn't understand, like when you feel, feeling like a failure at work, and then you come home and you fight with your wife and kid, and now you feel like a failure there. And then, this passing of this young gentleman I work with, I was like, damn, I couldn't even do that. And I think that made me feel like a failure, strangely enough.
Yeah.
But I think how I cope is to tell them my story, and I've had a lot of firemen I've talked to a lot of them in the past week. We've had to do a lot of debriefing stuff at work. And I've just been honest with my story. I'm like, let me tell you how I almost accidentally did it purposely. You know what I mean? I'm like, this is how it happens. I've seen it. These are the thoughts I've had that have led me down that. It started as a false narrative of thinking my family's better without me. And then next thing you know, we're fighting all the time. And I'm like, I don't even want to be around them. Now that's just another phase of it, and then just feeling like a failure. And it's like, dude, I'm not a failure. I own a business. I'm arguably funny, not right now, but you know what I mean? Like, I have friends, people like me. I'm I'm a good firefighter. I was a good EMT, good medic, nurse, you know. Those are positives, you know. Just try not to ruminate on the negatives, you know.
How do you find your way to comedy? Is it all out of this, or is was that an interest before? Like, it's always been there for you?
Yeah, it was always an interest for me. Well, I used to write jokes, so I got to write a joke down. I see something funny and just write it down. Like, I still probably have notes from 99, like in an old computer, of just things I thought was funny. But it's something I always wanted to do. I just never really knew the avenue or the venue to get into it. And then too, the culture, like I was like, oh, I don't want to get fired for telling a stupid dick joke, you know? And then one night I was, my wife was out of town, and a little local bar by us was having a comedy show. I'm like, you know, I don't got nothing to do. So I went up there and watched. And I was like, oh, dude, these guys suck. I could do this. And that's how all comedy starts, man. Like you see someone, you're like, this guy sucks. I could do that. And then next thing you know, you're at an open mic and doing comedy. And it's like anything, it's like a drug, man. You're like, oh my God, I want to do it again, you know. And next thing you know, you're doing it 4 to 5 nights a week and writing jokes and bombing.
What did you tell me when we first talked? You said, don't do comedy until you're ready to do comedy. Is that what you said?
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. I work with some of the funniest people on earth, man, in the fire department. Sometimes I'm like, hey, man, I want to get into comedy. I'm like, don't even fucking do it, dude, until you can commit to it, because you're going to want to be all in. Like, it's that addicting. It really is. And it's addicting on twofold. Like when you crush, like you murder, you do good, you're chasing that. And then when you bomb, you're like, shit, I got to do good. I have to go crush tonight so I can get this funk of sucking off of me.
Well, that's how slot machines work. So it's just that intermittent reinforcement for you.
Yeah, that's funny. Yeah. Yeah, that's it, man. It is.
You see it and you go, he sucks. I can do better. And then what do you go? Open mic and you progress from there? Or how's it work for you?
Yeah. Yeah, that's exactly it. So I always tell people, you have to start in an open mic, and then eventually someone's going to see an open mic, and you're going to learn that they run a show somewhere. And then they're like, hey, we do a show on Tuesday nights. You should come out. And now you're at a legit, kind of show. And they're low key, $10 shows. You're getting paid $10. And you do a few of those, and then you meet someone that's got a better show, and then they put you on. And it's all that.
Yeah, if you're there, I lost you, dude.
I'm sorry. Hey, sorry about that.
Yeah, you're good, dude. There you are.
He's still there?
Yeah, man.
Yeah, I have my phone on silent. I keep getting somebody calling through. I hope it's not my daughter's school.
Now so you were talking about you do open mic, and somebody gets you into a show, and then you go for a bigger show from there. So and I'm not sure where we dropped, but that was the process you were talking in.
Yeah, it's just all, kind of working your way up the ladder. But even once you're doing like legit paid shows, like regular shows, you're still always going back to open mics. And at least at my level, you're still doing open mics. Like I still probably do 3 of them a week. And you're going back and that's where you're taking new material, like you have a new premise, a new idea, and you run it there. You see if it's got a little something. And then we got a couple rooms that are what we call a step up mic, where it's not a paid show, but it's an invite only for comics. And with a crowd, so you got a decent crowd. So you bring a joke that's starting to work, you bring it there, play with it, see how it does in front of a legit crowd. And then if it's killing, you'll start working it into your like regular set, your paid sets, for your like Friday, Saturday shows. But yeah, it's literally the evolution of a joke. But it's all communication. Like I see there's no bad jokes or just bad articulation of your thoughts, And sometimes if you have a premise on something that's funny or it's going to work, you got to keep running with it and either believe in it, keep reworking it, keep rewriting it, or abandon it, But you got to keep looking at this bit and finding what the funny is. And why is it working or not working?
So do you ever use comedy as an outlet for what you're seeing at work?
I'm trying to get a little more open with it. like I got this joke I'm working on now, and I believe in it, and I know it's going to come together, but it's called PT at Disney. Yeah.
Thanks for listening to another episode of The Things We All Carry. Head over to the website, thethingsweallcarry.com, for show notes, resources, and to sign up for the newsletter. Until next week, take care of yourselves and remember to check in on each other.